Hello. You ever came home from work to find out that your residential air conditioning unit is not working? Hi, my name is William Taylor, and today we're going to talk about things to look for in a malfunction of your residential air conditioning unit. And to do so, we have to talk about the basic components, things to look for during a malfunction to help you out, and lastly, preventative maintenance, which will help you in the long run. To do so, I have attached this PowerPoint presentation that shows all these items. Now on slide 3 of this PowerPoint presentation, I have a drawing of a typical residential air conditioning system. You have your condenser, your air handler, and your ducts. Now let's break those down. On slide number 4, let's talk about the air handler itself. In the air handler, there's 3 main components. The blower, the evaporative coil, and what we call the brain of the furnace or air handler, the control board. Now the blower is what gives you your volume of air through your system. The evaporative coil is what conditions that air before it reaches the conditioned space. And the control board is the brain. It tells each component what to do. Now that we've talked about the air handler, let's talk about the condenser. Now the condenser has a condenser coil that is the exterior of the condenser itself, which is what disperses the heat from your house. Also, you have the heart of an air conditioning system, which is your compressor, which is what compresses the refrigerant gas. Also, you have a condenser fan motor, which helps that condenser release heat. Now that we've talked about the condenser, let's talk about the duct system. Now, this is a crazy picture of a duct system. Normal households don't look like this. I just wanted to give a good example and show different spider-like distributions to other rooms of your house. You'll have a box-like, which you can see in the drawing, or the picture, excuse me, that is like where it will collect and it'll disperse out each arm into the rooms. And at the end will be a diffuser, which I showed an example of right next to that picture. Now that we've talked about the primary components of an AC system, let's talk about things to look for during a malfunction. Now on pancami.org, air conditioning maintenance and service tips, they talk about some primary things to look at, and most of them sometimes are user error. First, let's look at a thermostat. The first thing to look at on the thermostat is to make sure that your set point is where you want it. Because if a unit is below a set point, it's not going to run. And it may be higher than what you really want it. Also, make sure your fan control is in the right position. And your system selector to know if it's in heat or cool. Now let's talk about your furnace or your air handler. First thing to check would be to see if it has power. Secondly, to see if your supply fan is running. Normally, you wouldn't even have to open the unit up to know that. You could walk up to it and hear it running. Also, if all those items are functioning and you're really still not feeling that air volume or not feeling that cooling, check your evaporative coil. Make sure it's not frozen up or there is some kind of impedance on there on the coil itself. Now that we've talked about some of the items on the air handler and the thermostat, now let's talk about the condenser coil, or the condenser itself, excuse me. Now the condenser, all those 3 components that we talked about earlier are common things to go wrong. Your condenser fan, most condenser fans do not last a real long time. So if you come up to a unit and you hear your compressor running and you kind of emits some heat off of it and your condenser fan isn't running, normally the condenser fan is bad. Also, make sure that there's not a lot of trash or items that are stuck around the condenser coil. That could be a big malfunction. Also, your disconnect to your condenser, make sure that is in the right position, the on position. Now that we've talked about things to look for in a malfunctioning situation, let's talk about some preventative maintenance tips that could help you in the long run. On HVACforbeginners.com, they talked about some items. First off, the most common malfunction in a residential HVAC system is the filter. Filters, depending on the quality filter you buy, there is quite a few different quality ranges for filters. You can buy just a regular fibrous filter, which could last right around a month, or you can buy up to a 3M or a hyperallergenic filter that can last up to 4 months. Pull your filters out, check them, and look for just like regular dirt. You'll see if it's dirty or not. But if you get like the 3M filters and the more expensive filters, a good check would be to take a flashlight on one side, look through the flashlight and look at the light ring and judge what your percentage of impedance is in that light ring. Other items to look at would be your condenser coil, making sure that the proper yard maintenance is done, and when the proper yard maintenance is done, that stuff doesn't get caught up on that coil. All that stuff will get caked on that coil and make it more difficult for it to release heat. Other items to look for would be, make sure you clean your evaporative coil. It's not a common item for people to check, but it definitely will save you money in the long run. If you take the access panel off and your A-coil is like this, make sure on your undercarriage of that A-coil that it's not matted and all dirty. That's what your filter is supposed to prevent. Make sure it's not matted and dirty. Clean all that stuff off. And while you're at it, when you got that off, make sure you clean out your drain pan that's under that A-coil, because sometimes that can get clogged up and it can cause a mess in your garage or your closet, so on and so forth. Now today we have talked about when you have a malfunction on your residential air conditioning unit, what things to look for. We've also talked about the components to get you started and preventative maintenance tips to point you in the right direction.